There we go. Crossfade that down. Welcome to the Elven Plot Armour Total WaRamble whatever podcast. We are joined today by a team of 5, including myself, an Aussie, English, Swiss, German, and American. Let's go around the circle first. I'll have to start. My name is Elven, short for last name Plot Armour, and I'm from Australia. I've been playing Total War since Medieval 2 and on and off with mods, mainly obviously maining the Elven factions in Total Warhammer, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I play on Legendary almost exclusively now, but tend to drill one race at a time so I can get these endless guides out. I didn't go for half a minute without swearing. Good stuff. All right.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
All right, let's draw a name out of the hat. Let's go. Our next person is going to be HawkeyeG from the USA, and also check out his channel as well on YouTube. Take it away.
Hey everyone, yeah, it's me, HawkeyeG. How long have I played Total War in general? Honestly, it's since Total War Warhammer. I've played Shogun 2, I've played Medieval 2, but they never really stuck with me. I was not as big into strategy games either, though. Nothing against those games. Gone back and played them. They're great. Which races, factions you prefer? I think right now my favorite's actually Lizardmen. With the Oxyotl DLC, my favorite is Lizardmen. I really love the Skaven. I love shooting and blowing things up. But I've played a lot of like High Elves and Empire as well. And in the real world, I'm a dwarf. If you ever wrong me, I will never forget it, and I will never forgive you until that right is wronged. Preferred Oh yeah.
The Karazhan
Preferred difficulty. So I honestly, on like campaigns that I'm familiar with, I need to start playing on very hard campaign. I usually play normal battle difficulty because then I can do whatever I want in battles and have fun. I can kind of bring in whatever units and experiment with them. On campaigns, I'm not as like Tyrion campaign. If I don't play it on very hard, it's going to be too easy. But for like not a Teclis, but like an Imric campaign, I'm probably not playing that kind of campaign on very hard. I'm not quite there yet, or at least not willing to cheese my way out of it. One or the other, take your pick. So yeah, that's me.
That's awesome. All right, and that's awesome. We've got a really good breadth of players and opinions, which is what we're up here. Next up, we have Erik from Germany.
Yeah, I'm introverted as I'm not good at these. Yeah, I'm from Germany, as you may have been able to hear. You know, I'm the cheese side of this group. I play on very hard most of the time, but you know, Legendary also works for me. Favorite factions? Yeah, I just play whatever I want. The one I haven't played for the longest. What other topics do you want me to introduce?
That's pretty much it. I think there's 2 members of this group that are very heavily into the modded scene, and you're one of those. Would you like to just touch on that?
Yes. I just play whatever mod I find that looks funny, and mainly Grimhammer is my favorite. I pretty much I can play without it, but why? Why would I?
Excellent. All right. Next up, we've got Ethan. Wolf, whatever, from the most northern edges of England.
Northern, yeah. So I've been playing Total War since maybe 2007. Started with Rome 1, then Empire and Napoleon. You know, Barbarian Invasion, Alexander, all that kind of jazz. I used to mod Rome 1 back in the day. I stopped playing pretty much all video games for about 4 years, and then I got a gaming PC as a gift, and then went onto Steam, found Total Warhammer.
Mate, that's I was like, oh yeah, drug addicts like a big block of heroin. That's just horrible.
Yeah, bro, honestly, man. And then I remembered I used to have I had a kit of Graveguard as a kid from Games Workshop, and I remembered just the general existence of the Warhammer Fantasy universe. So I downloaded it, and then, well, 2 years later, I've got about 2.3k combined hours between all the accounts. Read most of the law. Sorry for the swearing. That's available to read. I've got the books, reading Tyrion and Teclis. I play Legendary without cheese, and I played Law Friendly, which took a long time to get to. I had to first learn how to cheese, first learn how to play efficiently before I could then start introducing more difficulty through self-limitations and trying to be lore-friendly. I'd try not to confederate, for example, factions that wouldn't necessarily do so in the lore. But yeah, so I play for fun, try and use different builds, different armies. I use units I like over units that are purely meta.
Yeah, that is awesome. This goes to show you can already see just the breadth of players and how really... I don't really see Mortal Empires as a sandbox per se, but when you hear what everyone does with it, you really can sort of see how it does get to that, because even myself, I don't try to hamstring myself that much, but I do impose rules on myself to stop me snowballing too quickly so I can enjoy the end game, and Erik will just cheese the heck out of everything anyway.
Yeah.
All right, and who have we got left? We have Cake from Switzerland.
Yes, I'm the Swiss feller. That doesn't mean I cheese everything, though. I do like cheese. Anyways, I'm also heavily into the modding scene, as Erik. I basically play Warhammer. Since I've played it for 60 hours after, it's just been exclusively with mods. When I'm waiting for mod updates, I might play it vanilla, but other than that, I'm mainly a modder guy. I got introduced to Total War as a franchise through my PC. I got gifted when I was like 12 or 13, which was a HP PC, and with that came the Rome 2 Emperor's Edition. So I got that for free.
Oh,
I played it first, thought the game is a bit not so good, and but then I gave it a second go, and I've really enjoyed it. And since then, I've been playing every game except Thrones of Britannia and Three Kingdoms, but everything else I've been playing, really. My favorite game is Warhammer 2, though. And regarding Warhammer, my favorite race is the Greenies, so the Greenskins. But I also love my rat boys. I hold them close and dear. But it's just a bit of... I liked the Greenskins since Warhammer 1, and with the update, they greatly improved them. And I just like bashing people's skull in with just blunt force, so that's fun, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's great, guys. That's great. Let's just jump straight into it. I think we've been having some good discussions about difficulty, and I just want to jam this one in here first. And basically, let's just have a very quick 5-minute round table of we've got a big spread of the different difficulties that people play. And I think a lot of things that need to be increased in terms of the AI. Let's just do a quick round table thing of what if you could, one thing you like about the AI and one thing that you just really wish they would change with it. So let's start with Hawkeye.
All right. One thing I do like about the AI, and I feel like people kind of overlook this, right? We've talked about how much their decision making can be predictable and obviously therefore exploitable, but it's really good at making use of stuff that I think is familiar with the series, right? Like dealing with cavalry flanks and cycle charges, like nightmare, pure nightmare. I'm playing this Balthasar Gelt campaign right now, fighting the vampire counts, and all it takes is like a few blood knights circling around, and it's not like you lose the battle, but they're really good at that. They're really good at controlling like those kinds of units, like infantry and cavalry, stuff like that, being able to play those effectively. We've talked about it before too, but something that needs improvement. Okay, there's plenty of things that need improvement. They need to not just sit behind the walls in sieges. They need to know when it's time to move out or do something different.
I'm just going to make a blanket rule right now. We're going to leave sieges alone.
Okay, fair enough.
It's going to top everyone's list.
Oh yeah,
Everyone knows.
But we mentioned this too, but like effective use of magic. I mean, I can see it being kind of troublesome because then of course, one of the player's most effective tools is magic, and we mentioned it already, the Skaven warp lightning thing, right? imagine if the AI can use magic that effectively. I think it'd be a hard thing to figure out for them too, but just seeing it used more to make more sense, I think it'll put more pressure on you as the player to perform differently, right? If you know that you have to kind of anticipate that, are you going to focus down their spellcaster more? Is it going to change your formations? Or at least it's, you know what I mean? It's an additional piece of pressure that you don't necessarily have to worry about right now, with the exception of like, you know, some single target spells, right? Or like, you want to try to dodge the Doom Bolt when it's coming in, stuff like that. But outside of that, it's something that for some spells, the AI, it's really good. And for some spells, it definitely needs work.
I do agree. All right, the Switch Cake, what's your way in?
What I like about... Do you say what I like about AI and what I don't like, right?
Yeah, so one thing that you like and just one thing that you think is just really bad, and Sieges...
Yeah, so what I like is that especially when the AI gets like cornered, or like just they are like on the brink of being exterminated, they actually now, especially in newer titles, they actually have something like close to self-preservation. Well, before that, especially in Rome 2, they sometimes just didn't care. They could be one settlement and then they would just hate you. Yeah, and what I don't like is really just how they handle difficulty, really. It's not necessarily that I don't like the AI. I feel like improving AI is a really difficult thing. But what I hate is just like how they handle difficulty with AI. It's basically just like either you make them more tanky, which they don't do here, to just give them like benefits to be on par with the player. And that's, I mean, it's one solution, but it's not really a good one. But at the same time, it's, especially in strategy games, I believe it's harder to improve the AI compared to, like, let's say a standard RPG game, where you can basically just maybe reduce, let's say, the amount of loot you find and make enemies deal more damage, maybe. Well, here in a strategy game, you can't just take this easy solution. Yeah, basically, that's all I have to say.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we, as the players, one thing I do see a lot of is people hate the concept that the player gets punished or has a disadvantage towards the AI. We want the AI factions to play the same way as us and play the same game, but if we did that and they were playing exactly the same, we would never get anywhere. We'd never get out of our first province, so it's incredibly hard to manage. What do you think, Erik, from Germany?
I'll start with the thing I don't like, because that's easier in this game. It's just, it really feels like you're playing against just a bot, and that's how it is, you know. But a good AI, from what I imagine, is an AI that doesn't really feel like an AI. That's also why you've got all these tests in psychology and stuff, where the aim is to make it not feel like an AI. And this AI has such a fast response time, which is, that's just how it works. But this balances like all the different unit types and spell types, and also magic, because and I mentioned this in our other bit before we started streaming. Like you cast a spell on the AI and it'll like give a dice roll or something. I hate that. It'll give a dice roll of whether it hits, because if it rolls, it doesn't hit. It just perfectly dodges, and you can't do anything about it. That's.
Like to remind you, this is based on a board game. I'm just joking.
So what? It's Total War, Yes, it is based on a board game. That was definitely the joke I was making. And I don't like this dice roll, whether the AI just dodges a spell or not. And that's also like with the speed of the computation, it just dodges instantly if it wants, and if it wants to hit your units, it will hit your units with the spell, because you just can't dodge that quickly. That's pretty annoying. And what do I like about this game's AI? Well, the thing is, other things I don't really think about, and I think that's a good thing. Because, like, at times like these, with sieges and spells and, you know, stuff like that, you think about that, but the good parts you don't think about. Because it just works. Like, you know, they have decent strategy, you know, they don't like leave a unit hanging somewhere where it's just, you know, being shot, or at least that's like happened once maybe when I bugged out the air, and I think that's pretty good.
Just once.
Yeah, you know the cheese where you have like 16 stegodons, and you can send a flying unit to a specific spot in the map, and the AI will just not make their units move, so you have infinite time to heal.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll actually hop in now and do mine. One thing that I'll do, what I don't like and what I'd like to have changed, my biggest one is, like, God bless him, Legend of Total War, every fight he has takes 15 freaking minutes because it's the same thing. Fly a unit up there, waste all of their ammo. There's a ritual, right? And, like, I think it needs to be a thing. Like, one of my mates and I, we played a versus campaign, and he tried wasting my ammo. So I told my archers, hold your arrows, lads. He's just dancing around there. So I wish the AI would do that same thing as well. And I'll probably get shot to pieces for saying this. They need to force battle timers. You cannot have a proper AI, in my opinion, where time isn't an actual factor. And in real life, fights did only go for a certain amount of time, and they would call it a day and pull up stumps and go home after a certain while. And I think, like, being able to actually stand there and not have anything happen should be using a resource, which is time, whereas you can just keep on baiting arrows out and make them whittle down their resources. I wish there was at a point where they were like, okay, they're wasting my arrows, stop trying. And yeah, that's what I wish they would fix. What I do like is that it's fun. Honestly, that's one thing, even on Legendary difficulty, like, for the most part, the campaigns are engrossing, they're fun, things feel like a threat. You know, like similar to what Erik said, like, you're not always thinking about it. I think that's a good thing. If you're not focusing on it, you're engrossed. And that means something's being done right. Next up, we have Ethan. Wolf, with wrong animal.
Things like, well, what do I like about the AI? Total Warhammer. Not much, actually. Despite the fact that it's my favourite Total War game of all time, that's more to do with the theme, the unit variety, the mechanics, the lords, the aesthetics. The actual AI, honestly, I prefer Rome 2. I prefer Rome 1 AI. I think that the AI in Warhammer 2 needs to feel more. It's not even a case of being smarter. Like, I think we've touched on this. In some regards, it's more a case of being more dynamic, more variable. Because the AI, if you're playing against a human in any, you know, even in real warfare, if you're going up against another human, which is, for the most part, you know, as much as I can actually reason, that's all we've had in war. Going up against another person, making mistakes is something that happens in battles and in warfare, or even just a misstep. And that's something you don't necessarily get from the AI, is that variation of sort of fallibility in how they perform. So, because there's no variation, battles often play the same way. If you go up against an army, and it's really clear for some factions like the Lizard Men and the Dark Elves, is that they line up their troops in a very sort of rudimentary formation every time, and then they send them in. It's very rare. Yeah, exactly. It's very rare to see them do something unexpected, and when they do, even if it's not clever what they've done, or even if it's not conducive to success, I like seeing the AI doing something unexpected. I like seeing them doing things that are unpredictable, which is what you're sort of after to a degree in a strategy game. Every single ambush, and especially after the last patch where they gave ambush AI the defensive format, they move their units in such a repeatable way that it's sort of unengaging. But you know, the other things, like you said, you don't focus on it so much because you've got your own units, you've got your own magic to think about. That takes the focus away from what the enemy's doing, which I think is one of the things that sort of gives grace to how much the AI needs improvement. But yeah, like you said. Exactly, and then there's also, like you said, wasting ammo. I won't talk too much about sieges, but if I do cheese or if I do use let's say a tactic, quote unquote, in a siege, right? The AI does not respond to it as if it's learning from the problem, or even just trying to do something at all. They'll just keep the units stationed. One of the things I think you can make artificial. Sort of life in the AI by just giving them more to do, even if it's not clever, even if it's not well thought out strategy, is just by letting the AI do something spontaneous or seemingly spontaneous would make it feel more alive. And you get more of a feeling of that in my limited experience with Three Kingdoms. So yeah, overall, I think the AI is not good in Warhammer 2 and it needs a great deal of improvement in Warhammer 3, and I'm not entirely certain if that's an aspect I have much hope that for CA to actually improve on, but if they do, I'll be very, very happy.
It maybe doesn't need that much to actually be quote-unquote serviceable, but I think you said something interesting there where I think it would be kind of cool if they racially play different. Like Greenskins,
yes.
You should be prepared for that. Why is they're coming for you, right? That you know that's happening on the front line and you're going to have to deal with that, you know? Like there should be that difference in the intelligence and the tendency for them to do certain things, but I think we're struggling with basics a bit at times, so maybe that's pushing things.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's cool. Thanks everyone for sharing your views on that. So going to the meat and potatoes now, if we had one more DLC for Total Warhammer 2, CA just hypothetically come out and say, listen, we need another 3 months for Total Warhammer 3, so you don't burn us down. Don't burn us down in our houses. Here's another DLC. The one faction that does not have a presence in the Vortex campaign is the Vampire Counts. Now, just going around the circle, let's use the same order that we did before. Do you think that it should be Vampire Counts? And if it is, do you have a preferred Lord? And what would you like to see added to them? Because surely there would be a rework. So starting with, who went first last time? I think it was Hawkeye.
Yeah. Well, I suppose maybe this is already getting ahead of the topic, but then like the other question is who's the person who accompanies that lord, right? If it's a DLC, isn't it going to be two lords? But should it be Vampire Counts? I actually haven't given anything like this too much thought. It would make sense. I don't know enough about the lore to suggest who it might be, but it would definitely shake things up. There's a lot of like different conflicted areas. I don't know if there's like lore for somebody to appear in something like Lustria. We've been throwing a lot of stuff at the Dark Elves in the Northwest lately, so I don't think we need anything there. I don't know if it makes sense to put them on Ulthuan, so I feel like in the Southeast continent is probably where it makes the most sense for them to go. I mean, weren't they there originally to replace the Tomb Kings anyways? And there's still some like minor factions around there, so maybe that's the thing that makes sense. But I think that would be good. I'm trying to think of the other DLC, because I mean, I know we've had a Bretonnian lord, but you know, Bretonia could probably use a rework as well. The Vampire Counts did get that rework, right? And for a while they were really strong. And this is me thinking in terms of Mortal Empires as well, right? Because the Vampire Counts, I don't know. They're definitely not the powerhouse that they used to be. I still see them like they can grow in size, but it's kind of artificial, right? I never see them finish off the Empire. Sometimes they come close, but they screw around too much. And I mean, they've got enough competition now with like Drycha over there, especially throwing a wrench in things, but Clan Mulder as well. I mean, there was a time where, like, when they got their rework and you were trying to play an Empire campaign, you were going to have a lot of issues. Like, you had to be ready for the Vampire Counts because they were going to come for you, and they were going to come for you pretty fast. And now it just seems like they screw around until you're ready for them, and then they start expanding in the other direction. I don't know. it's kind of weird. So I don't know. I don't really know what to suggest. I think I had an idea of something that you could put in there to kind of give them some different flavor or some different kind of abilities. Actually, that's the thing. And this is probably more from a player perspective. I don't know if this would really help the AI. I would love to see attrition be more meaningful. The vampiric corruption stuff, right? Back when I first played Total War Warhammer 1 and I looked at the Vampire Council, I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, I can play this as like a defensive, reactive, like slow creeping faction, right? You take over a couple areas and then you really focus on spreading attrition nearby, and now all of a sudden your enemies can barely even fight. But that's not really what happens, right? I think that would be great if it would happen. I would love to see the AI. I guess we just talked about what AI needs to be improved. They need to be punished more for going through attrition, and therefore they probably need to be a little bit smarter about when they decide to go through it. But yeah, I think that's a big weakness, right? Having the corruption should be a big advantage for you as the vampire counter. It's something that's crucial for you and that is pretty much negligible for the AI. So I think that's something that I would like to see. If there's any idea that I have, it would be some way to rework the way that corruption and attrition works for them right now.
I really like that idea of weaponizing corruption, being able to actually invade and damage without using diplomacy or military. Like, that in itself is such a cool idea. Like, I know that it kind of works like that, but I see that in a different light, the way you've explained that. I think that is really cool.
It makes sense for their race, right? Like, that sounds exactly like something they do. Sit in their, beautiful towers and try to just ruin everything around them and force the Empire to come to you and wipe them out. And then now you have like this amazing recruitment pool sitting at your house,
Yeah, but maybe it'd be cool if, I know this might sound a bit hokey, but what do you guys think? Actually being able to turn lords of other factions and make them recruit
into vampires.
Yeah, but like to say ones that are in their recruitment pool per se. Do you mean you can actually go and recruit from other provinces by seeking out strong individuals and then, I don't know, biting them and bringing them home? I don't know how it works. Something like that.
Yeah,
it could be interesting. Yeah, it's definitely something I think would need to be discussed and fleshed out a little bit because that's
just far from the hip there. It's
right.
Probably a pretty dumb idea, but something like that where it feels like you are infiltrating the peaceful, proper world and corrupting.
Right.
Yeah. But that's cool. So, and you think probably Bretonnia as a secondary faction?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's yeah. Bretonnia is. I mean, we've already talked about this in the Discord a little bit. Like, to say they exist in my current Balthasar Geld campaign, they don't even exist. Corone is dead, and only Paravan, or no, not is it Paravan? Paravan or Bastogne? One like a minor faction of Bretonnia is the only one left alive in their own territory. Like, Corone doesn't even make it through certain campaigns. Like, they died before the. Yeah. Well, they died before they had a chance to do anything. So there needs to be something different there to see maybe a new Bretonnian lord added, or at least to put them somewhere else, give them a new perspective. And I don't even know what kind of rework stuff that they would need, but something to change. I don't know. They're not defensible enough at this time to be able to survive. So either they need better tools to counterattack with, or they need even better tools to defend with than they already have.
All right, cool. All right. Next up, let's go Ethan next, actually, because you're a bit of a lore master. Obviously, you're going to go for vampires. Do you have an idea of, just give us one, maybe two lords that would be a likely front runner for the next DLC?
Well, this is something I've spent a lot of time thinking about, because you just touched on a lot of stuff there, dude, that I've been thinking about a lot, and I've watched a Great Book of Grudges, and he talked about one of a really good idea, using the Undercity mechanic with sort of just a repin, and we know CA likes to reuse assets. So to infiltrate nations of men to basically establish a necromantic presence there, and then you can have like things in sieges, like where you would spawn within the walls because you've converted parts of their population to necromantic, so zombies, vampires, strigoi, whatever. And then also the corruption, like you said. The thing is, you can use the corruption right now to a certain effect. There's a building that increases casualties taken by attrition for the vampire counts, and I think it's the Awakened Battlefield. And whilst the AI still doesn't take a lot of attrition, what it does do is it prevents them, or it disincentivizes them from attacking, and it does actually work for many turns. So like Ostermark won't come into Sylvania because they don't want to take the attrition, and to a certain degree with the Awakened Battlefield they will actually take a decent-ish number of casualties. So yeah, the focus on that. But the other thing is, in the lore, these guys have no presence in Ulthuan. They have no real presence in Lustria. It's Nehekara, the Land of the Dead, the Badlands, even east of the World's Edge Mountains, the Empire of Man. This is where they operate because we don't have any non-human vampires. So there is a dwarf Tomb King, and that's about as far as it gets. So in terms of lords, and this is where I start to get real excited, because you mentioned Bretonnia as well, and Bretonnia for me are the ones who need, because they actually said in a dev stream, CA, that they're not bothered about Bretonnia for the moment. They've got no plans at the moment for Bretonnia, and we got them for free, a whole race pack for free, but I would have rather paid and got more content. The other issue for Bretonnia is Games Workshop has also left them behind, so we don't really have that much, but there are characters who are fitting against the vampire counts, and the number one is Amalric de Gauderon. He's basically the anti-undead. He's got an aura around him that basically instantly melts undead, and he's got like a big bishop hat on top of his knight helmet. He looks like a badass. He's got a big book on his left shoulder. He would be really good to go up against a character like, and when I think about vampire counts, Loremaster and Great Book of Grudges did their Lawbeard stream, and they talked about how they'd want Zacharias, the Everliving, and Melchior or Wussaran. I'd like to see another bloodline come in, because one of each would be nice, like Abaras, Valak, or the Red Duke for the Blood Dragons, Vorag, Gashnag, or Usharan for the Strigoi, and so on and so forth. Neferata, obviously, for the Lamians. We've seen enough von Carsteins. I think can we all agree on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe Conrad as a legendary hero at some point, if they do a legendary hero pack like Lawmaster talks about. But the one I want to see is Malabord, the Black Serpent. He's the bastard son of King Luan Leoncoeur. So you could basically he sought the Grail. He sought the Grail, and he found out that the Lady of the Lake is actually full of. She's an Elven goddess. She's Lilith or Ladriel. She's got the two aliases, and he realised that the Grail is just a load of codswallop, and he basically wants to take over Bretonnia and have a non-Grail but still Grail Knights, and he's got these units called the Black Grail Knights and the Knights of the Black Grail, who are basically he'd have a mix of gunpowder, and this is what he has in the lore, by the way, gunpowder units, Bretonnian knights, and Empire State troops. So he has artillery, cavalry, and vampire count units as well, monsters. So for me, it'd be Malabord would be the number one pick versus Amalric de Gauderon. And if not him, then Abarash, Red Duke, or I think maybe Abarash. Yeah, Abarash, Red Duke, or obviously, we want to see Neferata, but she's pretty much guaranteed to come at some point. So is Nick. Well, okay, Malabord. Malabord, okay. Definitely.
Well, what I drew from all that is that it does sound like Bretonnia and the Vampire Counts are definitely a match made in heaven and would make some very thematic DLC. So that's awesome. Let's move on to the Swiss cake.
Okay, yes. When it comes to vampires, I don't think they really need a rework. I think the idea that I believe it was Hawk, with the corruption that it actually seeps into the territory and that they rework it, It will also benefit Chaos in Game 3 and Norsk as well. And I think that would be a good change, but overall I feel like the vampires are still really strong, and on top of that, they're really a cheesy faction, I do have to say that.
Their ability to raise dead is still devastating. To be able to just rip the whole army is just, it's solid, man.
Yeah, it's just, like lore-wise, I'm not really like well-read overall. I just know a few like Skaven and Greenskin lore bits, that's about it. But maybe what just came up in my mind is maybe that you could, like, undead are known to kill each other for like powerful artifacts. So what you could do is like maybe create a match between vampire counts and the vampire coast.
Interesting.
Plus that would actually fit into the Vortex campaign.
It would.
Yes, I like that.
That's kind of cool, actually. A hunter of vampire count of coast. I like that. Good answer.
The thing is, though, the vampire coast, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't really have like really deep lore.
No.
And most of the units they took for the current DLC is basically, most of it is from the Monster Arcanum, and they basically milked that dry. So they would basically have to make up new units.
A new character.
Yeah, and a new character as well.
I'd try.
That would be difficult.
Well.
But overall, I mean, the Bretonnia idea, I personally don't like Bretonnia. I played them once and I was like, yeah, well, it's basically Russia and Warhammer 2, so I don't care really. I just throw bodies of like weak units at my enemies and hope they will eventually just crush them with the amount of just dead bodies piled up. But what was suggested, especially by Wolf, I have to say, sounded quite interesting. As well, but to come back to my idea about the Vampire Coast and Vampire Count matchup.
Yeah, if that's what you vote for, then that's what you're voting for. That's cool.
Yeah, I think what you could really do there is like do it so that maybe like some ancient artifact, maybe also like make it like a race similar to like what Skarsnik and Belagar have going on in Queek. Maybe like Nagashi Zar or whatever, because that is already on the map.
Yeah, that's fun.
But it's only on Mortals Empires. That's the bit though. So you could only make it a Mortal Empires thing, similar to how, like I already mentioned, Skarsnik, Belgar and whatnot have it.
I think it's...
Plus, with that, they could maybe also like sneak in a little rework for that as well. For a little race to the 8 peaks.
Yeah, I don't think it's too bold to make things.
Oh, that's just like
yeah, I don't think it's too bold.
Spouting on ideas.
Yeah, I don't think it's too bold to make things based around Mortal Empires, because let's face it, they're going to be going for the ultimate Warhammer 3 map, and then they will want people to buy the first 2 games. That's what they will want. So everything is leading towards that. The Warhammer 3 campaign is purely to service the game in the early stages for the first year or so of release, to give a stable template so they can work towards the final Mortal Empires game, and that's what they'll push for years to come. I can't see them going any other way with that. Does anyone have any different thoughts to that? I know that's a segue, but does anyone see it differently?
No, I'm with you there. At this point, it's nice that it's really nice when they add like something new and they add a new faction to put it in the Vortex campaign, just because the Vortex campaign is more like controlled and usually has more distinct goals. So it's a great like trial for new things. But it's like ultimately, I like the Vortex campaign, but yeah, I think you want to make sure that there's something for the Mortal Empires, and that's usually going to be what most people play more, or like what's going to have more longevity. So you want to make sure that there's features for the Mortal Empires aspect as well.
Absolutely. We'll make that a talking point next time, actually, the Vortex versus Mortal Empires map. Okay, last of all, we have our...
German, okay, who keeps leaving and joining?
Looked like Wolf had to leave for a second, but Wolf is back, and then Cake might be having some audio issues or something.
Yeah,
Cake keeps jumping in and out.
Yeah, every 2 seconds.
Yeah, I'm back.
So yes, the German.
All right, so which... What's your take on one last DLC, if we got one?
One last DLC. I definitely agree that vampires should get a DLC. They did get reworked, like with the bloodline system, and I think they got some other stuff with that, but it's just not enough. They're a faction that's in part obviously about their giant swarms, but then they're also mainly about their elite units, but they just don't pull the weight. I don't know about like lords to add. We have Ethan for that, but I just wish that more of the elite units like Blood Knights, that they had better stats, better like unique effects, unique skills, which is also why I like playing them in SFO, because SFO just adds so many unique skills, especially thematic ones for the vampires, and I just really miss that with the current ones, because it's cavalry, it's not that much different, and it would be fun if it weren't that bad, because when I play vampires, I feel forced to cheese it. I think someone else said that. Yeah. That has to be gone. And a cool system I'd like maybe is that you could use, for example, the Lamians to do, I don't know whether it would be through agent actions, but that you could somehow influence the decisions of other factions. So, they like in the top parts of the faction, and you can, when sometimes you get events like, oh, this faction wants to attack you, and then you could like tell your spy, your little rat you have in there, to obviously do something about that. And I think that would add a little bit more depth to the Lamians. And, I think you could play around with that. And I also like the corruption idea, where you have better corruption, because corruption is a joke. I never feel like it's worth anything.
And what about the accompanying faction to face off again?
Accompanying faction. This is... People will hate me for this, but I just... The lizardmen are boring as
Where did that come from? We're talking about Bretonia.
No, the accompanying faction should be the lizardmen.
Oh, you wanted to...
I just want some decent faction mechanics for people like Mazdamundi, because what's it called? Is it the web? I don't know.
Web.
Yeah, the geomantic web. That's the faction mechanic. Like, bruh, that's so boring. I want to change to that, but an accompanying faction. Bretonia is also kind of meh right now, so I do kind of support the Bretonia idea.
That to answer my question of what do I want to... I'll do the support faction first, then I'll do the... talk about the vampire accounts, because I think that you can't not include them in the vortex. Support, I actually do agree with Bretonia. I think that is a good idea. They are a human faction. We're going to have a massive face-off between humanity and chaos in the next game, and they need a new spicy lord. I liked the idea of the guy with the gunpowder that Wolf brought up, because something like that, if they had like an Icket Claw, some guy who just has a raft of new really cool tools, really cool toys that just really spices the faction up, and sometimes it's just that massive doomsday character that makes the faction relevant again, like the Sisters of Twilight, like Wood Elves aren't top tier anymore, but people talk about them now, at least a little bit. There's but Malagor with the Beastman, that sort of thing. One character can make a big difference. And I think having them, I don't know exactly how to do it. I think just a few more mechanics around their feudal economy and having things like the peasant economy work in your favor, having mechanics that lever you as the player rather than having things that are a double-edged sword. Like, we're really moving past the double-edged sword mechanics. Like, you look at High Elves, Dark Elves, you've got things that work okay and things that work great, rather than things that have to Total War Attila, that are 2 steps back, 1 step forward half the time. So that's my answer for that. And as for the vampire counts, it helps going last for this one because there were some awesome ideas there. I absolutely love the, like Hawk said, the idea of like a Darth Sidious sitting in the top of a tower and just watching the world get corrupted and melt away. Wolf's idea of having undercities, having agents that go under and start underground clans and cults in different cities like that, taking them over from the inside and manipulation. That sounds awesome. And being able to do like a Menace Below of vampires in the middle of a siege of a place you have an undercity established, like that sort of stuff is awesome. More about the deviousness of the vampires. If they can get that theme across more, that's what I'd like to see more of. And
I just got a really good idea.
Yeah.
If you have corruption, like, you know, you're playing vampires, you get corruption and the city revolts because of your corruption. Why, like, it will be just a random army, won't it? The revolting army in normal game. But what if that was just an army that you could control? Or what if, you know, you just took over the city, kicked the army inside out just through some event, if you have an undercity or, you know, something like that? Because that would make sense.
It would, yeah. So that's that one wrapped up. Okay, next up is Teclis, and currently he's sitting at 76%, of course, with room for discussion. So going through, let's go strategy rating. Let me bring him up on the screen.
There is no limit to my
We're going to go for strategy rating first. Faction specifics, he has +10 relations with all Ordertide, which is nice. He has -25% recruitment cost for Swordmasters and Phoenixes. Yep. But he does get he does get +5 rank for all casters, and that is awesome. I'm going to show my guides coming up. If you have a rebellion, raise an Archmage, that's level 6, and just power out that burning head, you will defeat any rebellion. Easy. Just without one-man army. It is an instant fix. That itself means public order is not an issue for him. It's a very overlooked powerhouse ability. Him as a faction leader, he gets the Crown of Safri, which gives him another mage, and now more mage levels and all that absurdity. So his power is in his items, but he himself can bring a bit more to the table. But again, it just seems to be getting more mages and making them stronger. But mages are one of their best units. And he's a high elf with influence. So 3 3/4 stars is what I've come to. I don't think he could maybe graze up to 4.
I honestly love Teclis as like a character, and I do enjoy his campaign. I almost would even say you could go down to like 3.5 stars though. Just looking at, I mean, we're talking about like a Lithanar has the ambush on attack and the underway, a global recruitment turn reduction, and for Teclis what we get cost reduction for units that we probably aren't going to make much use of, a small diplomatic relations bonus, which especially for you guys playing on very hard and legendary, that +10 diplomatic relations, especially by the time you meet those people, which you're going to be big enough that you're great, it's just going to be insignificant, right? I think the one thing that like makes the recruitment cost, well, but it's recruitment cost for Phoenix and Swordsmasters, right? I think the Phoenix, I'll make a case for the Phoenix because you're playing with Teclis, right? Phoenix's power scales a little bit on your winds of magic, right?
Sorry, I cut you off. I didn't mean that they're crap units. I meant like that.
Oh, that's okay.
Well, no, but because I've been shot down before for saying Phoenix are bad. But what I meant by that is that by the time you get them, they're a tier 4 unit. money.
Yeah.
Recruitment, a one-off recruitment cost.
Yeah.
Is not an issue for you then.
Yeah, if it was like
other
upkeep, it would be a...
things,
Oh, sorry, go
or
ahead.
whatever they're called, not included.
It's not even
Like-
upkeep.
Right. If it was a different bonus, that'd be great. But yeah, recruitment cost is just not. It's those. They're like the mages thing is obviously a good bonus, but that's it. Like that's where it starts and that's where it ends, right? Like you said, even on his items, like we get another recruit rank increase for mages, but you don't get anything else. He doesn't have any. Like the only. Yeah, he has like a couple of small bonuses for his army, and then everything else is for himself. Like he doesn't have any. He has like essentially no good faction-wide bonuses, no good buffs like outside of his own army. He needs that. He needs those bonuses to himself for his early game, but
Yeah, he's hard
yeah,
to
if we're
sell
talking
as-
about
He used to have a faction-wide. I think it was a spell cost reduction for all mages, and beforehand he was a lot stronger, whereas now he's not. But the other thing is, you mentioned the +10 diplomatic relations. That's for me, the way you approach that is glass half full versus glass half empty, though.
Yeah.
Because on legendary, 10 diplomatic relations could be the difference between a 10 turn, probably not 10, between 5 and 10 turns period of somebody declaring war on you. You could make the difference there.
Yeah, I think it's nice. It's not
So-
massive, but it's not.
But it's obviously not. It's not huge. And Tyrion's +20 with High Elves, who he starts right next to, is obviously, superior in every single way. And then 25% fucking recruitment. It's just nothing.
Yeah,
It's
5%
garbage.
Yeah.
recruitment as a sentence is garbage.
Yeah.
Unless it's 100% recruitment, I don't freaking care. Like upkeep is where it's at.
Yeah.
Reproduction is the big one. Yeah.
10 in relations is nice, but I do agree with HawkeyeG that I agree completely with Wolf. Like I do love my diplomacy. 10 relations is good, but the problem is, as HawkeyeG mentioned, is like you can't bloody use it for the first 20 turns because you don't know anyone.
Yeah, it is a good thing. It's valuable, but its value is just relatively low, especially compared to all of these other bonuses we're looking at for the High Elves and other factions in general.
It's a good point.
Well, obviously the thing is, for some of the Order factions, your aversion is only -30. So +10 is a 33 recurring percent reduction to the aversion penalty. But it's not the only thing with any meat on its bones here is the recruit rank for Loremasters and mages and archmages, and that's it is big. It's big as that, but it's. When you compare that to pretty much anything else the other High Elves have and to bring to the table, it's easily the weakest one.
I'll just bring the High Elf nerd use for why this is good, is that once you can get that crown by about circa turn 20, easily by turn 30, right? At that point, you can raise, whether it be like an extra 4 mages from any building, so you don't even have to have got your tier 3... what do you call it? You don't even need a mage tower to get that. And then you can have...
Yes.
You can use those as entrepreneurs to give yourself some cash. You can use them, of course, to get fire mages to boost yourself militarily. It does happen to be their best unit, but that's kind of all he does. So it's like... I think we can all agree it's not high. It's definitely not higher than 3 3/4 then. Is it even 3 3/4? Because let's remember, he is a High Elf.
Well,
it's all the benefits.
That's the thing. I was just going to say, what's bleeding over into that strategy rating there is very much just the fact that he's a High Elf and he is Teclis. And if you put these bonuses on pretty much any faction, any other faction or sub-faction in the game, it would be fucking meaningless. So, it's to do with the fact that he's a High Elf. Largely, I think 3.25. I'm happy with that.
That's 3.75, mate, not 3.25.
Yeah, 3.75. Sorry, I'm happy with that.
What do you think, Erik?
Ethan just summed it up very well. What can I say?
3.75 or 3.5? Do you think it's just the high?
It's a hard thing, but I'm not gonna weigh racism that much, so it's 3.5 for me.
Okay. And Hawkeye, are you at all swayed up to 3 3/4?
No, not really. Like I said, I just think that his bonuses are just not that great. Yeah, I'm gonna say 3.5.
Oh, we can do 3.5. We can do 3.5. My thoughts were simply I don't have enough. There's not enough substance here for me to think of how to change the rating. So I just look at 3.75 and I think, well, what's there to change? But 3.5, I can see that, man.
Yeah,
we're talking about a quarter of a star difference here, so I think we're all essentially in agreement. It's right around that area.
I'm going to do a bit of testing because I'm currently doing a guide on Teclis. So what I'll do is I'll run some scenarios, particularly in the early game, and I'll see just how much I think he can actually lever being a high elf. And I think that's kind of where we're umming and ahhing about this, because we're like, yeah, he's a high elf, but how well can he be a high elf given his situation? So I've highlighted that red, so that's going to get rounded down unless I can find justification to keep it that high through further testing. Let's go to military.
Yeah.
Military, I've got him as the same as Lariel simply because he is an absolute demon. His bird hurts, he hurts, he's dependable. He starts with a Loremaster Poeth, meaning he will never die, his Loremaster will never die, and he's got all the goodies of high elves stuff. So 4.25 stars. Thoughts, agreements, disagreements?
I killed that Loremaster so many times, I'm ashamed.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have anything to really add or say. I think the military rating's good.
Yeah, on military for Teclis, he really doesn't, other than the mages, recruit rank, he doesn't do anything other than base generic high elf factions. If you were to start as fucking Illyrion, the only difference between that and Teclis would be the mage rank in terms of military power. So if you're saying that 4.25, then you're kind of saying that 4 is the baseline for high elves.
Pretty much. That kind of is the go. Like, and both Tyrion and Delariel get there. Tyrion gets, with a couple of Silver and Guard and basic archers, he gets like one of the most literally free army, which still works till the mid to late game. Alariel gets the Sisters of Avalon early.
Whoa, hold on. I'm looking at this though, because Tyrion and Alariel have got 4.25 too. Yeah, and they've got better militaries than Teclis.
Well, do they really though? Like, being able to get fire mages, I always count the point in my campaigns. As soon as I get a fire mage, that's game over. It's GG. Being able to get multiple fire mages in all your armies as well as entrepreneurs. I think as well as Teclis himself, man. If you get a Caster Lord to start off with and get easy levels on him, and Teclis can get very easy levels on him, thanks to his early position.
So are you equating? You know, because are you saying that because in terms of military, did we say that, for example, Tyrion's -1 to global recruitment and stuff like that is -50% upkeep for his starting army? That's the 0.25 he gets over the baseline for high elves, and you're equating that to the recruitment rank for mages. Yeah, okay, I can see that.
Well, the thing is, he also gets more of them, and he can hire them from anywhere, and he himself, because also I also consider the leader themselves important in military, because most of your heavy lifting is done by your leader for the first.
Your primary army.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
It is important and does direct you. So I'm actually quite comfortable putting.
And he is one of the most powerful one-man doom stacks in the game. Yeah.
He's a one-man army, and you will have him at a high level. The only reason why you don't see him more in other factions is because you see he's usually not high enough level. You usually get him at a low level, or he's been...
Him and Imric are one of the last ones that most people get if they're starting as the others.
Yeah, and he's usually got points in in spear infantry instead of his spells.
Completely misspent skill tree, normally, yeah.
Okay, so we're almost done, guys. Let's go... Oops, what have I done? Let's go to diplomacy. I've got 3 3/4 stars there. He's, funnily enough, actually has a fair few people he can talk with. It's and the other lizardmen tend to be relatively friendly. As soon as you take out the initial Skaven and Dark Elves, he's only really got the Vampire Coast to worry about, and that is a lot easier said than done, I will admit, but he's also got...
Of course, he doesn't have to deal with the Kick Claw and Mortal Empires. Yeah. Yeah, see, the thing is, he's much harder on Vortex because you've got Kick Claw and Lord Scroll, you know what I mean, and the Vampire Coast.
Yeah. Hawkeye, what's your take on?
No, I'm all right with that. I think. Well, who's he got right next to him? He's got. My mind keeps picturing him next to High Queen Khalida, but that's Vortex. He's got the lizards, and he's got.
Yeah, that's.
It's like the Vampire Coast and. Yeah, then the Skaven and Dark Elves to the south and Mortal Empires. Yeah, I know I was just dumping on the diplomacy bonus before, but I think that one of the interesting things about Teclis is he can have like a diplomacy focused game. You can win that, like, you know, achieve the victory conditions of that campaign by just pursuing like defensive alliances into the late game, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of the times what I actually do is I destroy the lizardmen early on because, like, you just fight for Lustria because that's all, like, suitable climate for you. And you take that and you try to, then you explore the world and try to make friendships with everybody else as much as you can. I don't know, I almost feel like I might go a little higher on the diplomacy.
Wow. Okay.
Obviously, he's a high elf, so he has the influence mechanic. He has that small bonus. But it is tough. I guess positionally, he doesn't have a lot of, like, where he starts, right? You have to travel a decent ways to find other places and other people to interact with. So, yeah, maybe 3.75 is the right number. It's
tough.
He has good tools, but he doesn't have as good of opportunities to make use of them.
What do you think?
Yeah, plus, like turn 60 or something, you always get the all major ports discovered each other and that, which means you get access to trade and relations with Karl Franz, the whole of Ulfwan, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I think he's all right for diplomacy. You could say 4.
Yeah, I think that event is very important.
Can we agree with this, guys? So if we drop... Are you guys watching the stream? Do you actually have the stream in front of you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If we drop strategy by half a star and we give that other half star to diplomacy, that looks like it's making more sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on board with that.
He's not that starved of opportunity, and once you defeat his initial threats, he's not too bad. And like you're saying, you can kind of then decide to dismantle the lizardmen and take that territory if it's getting in your way. Like you can control it, right? That's the point of diplomacy, is you can control your engagements.
But obviously, it then depends which strategy you're going with. Because if you're going to attack the lizardmen, then you're only accounting that diplomatic bonus and relations with them in the early game until you decide to fight them. If you go straight for them, which obviously is not recommended, then you can't really include the lizardmen in your diplomatic sort of side of things. And his diplomacy really takes off when you discover the rest of Ulfwan and, you know, the Empire and whatnot.
And he can confederate quite reliably as well. You've got that +10 relationship to High Elves as well, which will help. All right, so I'm actually pretty happy with the way that's all sitting. The one we haven't discussed is geography, which I've got as a flat 3 stars. The starting tower isn't too bad that he's in. For a 2 settlement province, it's not a bad one. He's got a gold mine in the neighbouring island right below him. Problem is he's got a lot of fronts when he starts off, right? You've got to try and get rid of those first. I'm doing a guide currently on his first 20 turns, and it all depends on which way Lokier wanders. You can easily kill off Lokier before turn 10, but sometimes he'll wander up towards the north, other times he wanders south, and that determines where you can go. So you don't have that much control, but he is coastal, back against the water. Once there's only a couple of ways on and off that initial settlement, it's really because you've got the Vampire Coast right above you, and they don't really have much else to do but declare war on you.
Yeah.
What's your take, Erik?
I tend to have painful experiences with his geography. Just the tag team of Lockyer, of the Skaven, and of the Vampire Coast is a pain. So I definitely don't mind that rating. I'd almost say it should be lower from our standards that we've made, because 3 is actually something beneficial on our scale.
Well, what do we...
I don't really see how his geography is that great, apart from the gold mine. He has pretty much only the gold mine is something good, but then he has so many negatives just from his starting position being pretty tricky. Yeah.
It is, but it's hard to not be attacked, and it's hard to expand to start off with, but it's also very hard to die, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's cagey, but it's taking that last island, you've actually got a very defensible capital. It's just trying to make sure that when you're going south to take whatever that thingamy's jungle, the hunter's jungle in the south, is that the Vampire Coast will probably attack you from the north, and it's that whack-a-mole factor. But as soon as you overcome that, you're pretty much fine, you know? It's just being, like, currently what I'm finding is that the trouble he has is you take the volcanic islands, right? It's going to rebel. You go, you need to go knock Lockyer in the head, and he might wander up to the Vampire Coast, and then you kill him. You've had to take some provinces in the Hunter's Jungle to eliminate Lockyer, and now that's going to rebel. So you knock that in the head, and then you go back up to the Volcanic Islands, and now you've got war with the Vampire Coast. And that's the thing, is you have this three-way whack-a-mole between those first 3 provinces, and that's the issue. But once you get that under control, you're running around a lot, but you're not really in danger.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on that, Hawkeye?
Oh yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, like you said, it can be hard to get out and like expand properly. Like you're threatened a little bit on most sides, but yeah, it's hard to die. It's easy to kind of secure yourself there, and I mean that's what I end up doing a lot. If you don't kind of get a favorable, like sometimes the Vampire Coast will do something stupid, and you can just in like 1 or 2 turns you can turn the tables on them and take them over. But sometimes you don't get any good opportunities in the beginning. But it's so super easy to just sit there and fortify yourself until you have like Sisters of Avalorn, and then you can just run around and do whatever you want.
That's true. He's just hard to rush. That's the problem with him. Like, I think Wolf was saying, if you play him defensively, and I think that's what you're meant to do with him. Like most factions, if you actually play them the way that the devs expect you to do it, it often ends up being a lot easier than trying to play everything like Rome. And if you just sit back and make your alliances, make your trade deals, build your money up, pay other people to fight your wars for you, you'll basically live long enough to get to tier 4, get sisters, and then you can nuke the vampires. Thoughts, Ethan?
Well, as Teclis, I never take the whole of Lustria. I normally go up the Vampire and Tarantula Coast, and then from the ports, I make my way to Confederate in Ulf 1, and getting, like you say, developing relationships with Karl Franz and whatnot, the Bretonians even. He's got a lot of trade potential. He's got, he's not landlocked like Imric. It's obviously not the best. I'd say Elithanar has better geography than Teclis. So, I think I'm happy with 3 because it is still a port. It does still have, because that's where the +10 diplomacy sort of bleeds in, as well as the intrigue at the court. So, yeah, I don't think, if you were to isolate the geography itself, I'd say it's a very bad starting location. It's when you bleed into the fact, that he is Teclis, he is a high elf, he is on a, he has all these things he can do. He has the +10 diplomatic relations. When you bleed those in, it's not that bad.
No, I do agree. And last one is the economy. So we've got him at 4 1/4 stars currently. So that's the same as Lithanar. Keep in mind that we had Eltharion at 4.5, and we had Tyrion and Alariel at a perfect 5 stars each, just by virtue of Alt 1. 4.25 stars, I think, sounds pretty fair. Once he gets going, he can trade with everyone. He's not really poor. He doesn't have a lot of costs to deal with. He can defend his starting province at least with a single army without having to stress about it. He himself is a one-man army, so you don't need to multi-stack to fight anything off. It's just a bit whack-a-mole because you need that one army to do so much and be in too many places at once, but you don't need a lot of cost to get by with him. So, and also, like all things high elf, the economy will start rocking at some point. So I think 4.25 stars I'm comfortable with. Anyone else have thoughts?
Yeah, he also has access to, I think it's 2 or 3 elven colonies, right? Because where Lockyer starts, which is, I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
Chubbutal, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that's an elven colony, so you get more money from it. I could be wrong about that, but I think it is.
It's not. I do have the game open here. I think, again, it's a question of like Vortex versus Mortal Empires, right? Because in Vortex, you have I forget if it's the Fortress of Dawn or whichever one. Yeah, Citadel of Dusk. I forget which one it is, but
Fortress of Dawn, Citadel of Dusk. I'm fairly certain on Vortex where Lockyer starts is an elven colony.
That may be.
Yeah. Look, he starts with a port, so that's a point to his economy there. That's high elves trade. The Order factions can trade, so when you've got to bleed in, first of all, that he's a high elf. Second of all, that he's an Order faction. On top of of just the location, the economy of the location, he has no faction buffs to his economy. Or skills or anything like that for it. Whereas, even Tyrion, it's only 50% off of his army. But then the skill tree that Tyrion has and the skill tree that Alariel has, they both help with the economy, which I think, as well as being in Ulth 1, is why they get 5s. Teclis doesn't really do all that much, but he gets a starting port. So, I think he's, again, high elf. Trade. That's why these. Yeah, what have you got? 4.25.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that a Lithanar can do.
Yep.
Pretty much on par.
There's a boatload of tradables in Lustria. Lustria is very rich in resources.
Yes. Yeah. Medicinal herbs and whatnot, and gems. Yeah.
Yep. Well, I'm quite happy with that then. So 87 for a Lithanar and 76 for Teclis. Does that feel low for Teclis? But no one ever really speaks that highly of his campaign, so maybe that's...
Well, he's not as strong as a Lithanar. He's just not as strong as a Lithanar.
Just go around the circle one more time. What do you guys think of the overalls after following the 93 and 89 from the 3 powerhouse lords? We've got 87 and 76 for Lithanar and Teclis. Hawkeye?
Oh yeah, I agree. Again, like I said, I do really like Teclis, one of my favorite characters from like back closer to release and when this game first came around. But he hasn't kept up, right? A lot of other stuff. There's been a lot of power creep and other factions and other like abilities have just outscaled him. The bonuses that he gets just aren't as relevant now as they used to be. And I think a Lithanar, we've talked about it 100 times already, but it's can be a tricky start, but he's a very strong faction and has a lot of opportunity as well. So I'm comfortable with where these are. I like it.
Cool. And Erik?
I've given my part. I think Lithanar places very well. Just thinking about his campaign, the overall percentage just feels higher when playing him. But when you look at it closely, I think we've summed it up quite well.
There's that difficulty as well, isn't it? Like, it's like that percentage is almost like a difficulty percentage when you think of it as well. What's the chance that you're going to not die?
Yeah, but Teclis it's pretty on point what Hawkeye said.
If someone said he's like a 76% Lord in the street, someone just comes up to you. I don't know who would say that to you, but if they did, what would your reaction be besides get the hell away from me?
I'd be like, okay, man.
High elf, bro.
That'd be my
Just high
reaction.
elf.
I'd be a bit confused, but yes, not wrong.
Don't hurt me.
Don't hurt me. What's poking me down there? Is that a knife?
Imric is 200%. All right. Well, I think that is everything for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking part in this. We'll just do a sign off with everyone there. So thank you very much for HawkeyeG. Check out his YouTube. He's got a current video that's just landed with the Golden Order, which is pretty awesome. Wolf from the most northern reaches of England, thank you very much for the lore updates on Vampire Coast. The smooth German voice of Erik, thank you. And
Yes.
F to remember Cake, who's now playing trumpet. I understand. So
I was the only one who put F in chat. That deserves an F of its own.
I'll put one in for that one. Okay, well, thank you guys so much. This was episode 1 of hopefully a fortnightly series, and we'll catch you all next time. Thanks.
Right.
Goodbye, everyone. I'm tired now.